A for sale sign stood in my east pasture before the funeral guests left. A red sticker read, "Under contract." Leah stared as if it were a headstone for the living. Evan called the listing a contingency and reminded everyone that grief made me forgetful. I opened the red field book I had carried for 41 years. The contract covered parcel 47A. Hawthorne Ridge also included 47B, the farmhouse spring, and only legal access road. Someone had copied numbers from an old tax bill without reading the recorded plat. Then Dana Whitaker from Blue Ridge Title called. She asked whether I had signed an incapacity certificate and authorized Evan to act as successor trustee. I had done neither. He watched me close the book, smiling as if an old farmer's notes couldn't matter. He didn't know whose surveyor's seal appeared on the official plat. What would you secure first? The farm, the records, or the daughter afraid to speak? Comment below and subscribe to follow the number his contract left out. Before Miriam became ill, Hawthorne Ridge woke in layers. The pump clicked at 5. Crows lifted from the west cornfield at 6. By 7, light reached the red barn, and Miriam opened the kitchen window to complain that I had carried mud across her floor again. The farm covered 212 acres outside Staunton, Virginia. My grandfather had bought the first parcel in 1943. My father added the orchard and spring lot. Miriam and I spent 46 years repairing fences, paying taxes, and learning that land could feed a family while still breaking its back. I was 69 when cancer reduced our world to one downstairs bedroom, a medication chart, and the distance between Miriam's hand and the call button. Our daughter Leah came most afternoons. Her husband, Evan Mercer, came when paperwork needed signing or somebody important might see him helping. Evan sold commercial insurance. He wore polished boots that had never crossed a wet field and could turn any conversation into a calculation. He called the orchard underused acreage and the creek a development obstacle. When Miriam asked him not to discuss money beside her bed, he apologized beautifully and began again the next week. Leah was 38 and taught 8th grade science. She and Evan had a 14-year-old son named Owen. Before the marriage, Leah argued with sunlight in her voice. In the last 2 years, she started checking Evan's expression before answering simple questions. She stopped handling their bank account because he said numbers overwhelmed her. At family dinners, he corrected her memories until she apologized for events I had witnessed. I noticed. I also told myself marriage looked different from the outside. Miriam did not share my caution. "He is teaching her to doubt herself," she said one night. I promised to speak with Leah. Then Miriam's pain worsened, the nurse arrived, and I moved the promise to tomorrow. Tomorrow became another treatment, another emergency, another reason not to disturb what little peace remained. That failure mattered later. Evan began managing farm bills during Miriam's final month. I signed a limited authorization allowing him to pay vendors from one operating account. The document expired after 90 days, prohibited real estate transactions, and granted no authority over the Hawthorne Ridge Family Trust. Priya Nair, our attorney, explained every line while Leah and Evan sat at the kitchen table. Evan photographed the document. Leah watched him photograph it. I saw her begin to object, then stop when he placed his hand on her knee. Hawthorne Ridge was divided into 2 recorded parcels. Parcel 47A held most of the fields. Parcel 47B contained the farmhouse, spring, and access lane. Both belonged to the trust. Miriam and I were trustees together. After her death, I would remain sole trustee unless 2 independent physicians certified that I could no longer manage my affairs. Leah was named successor. Evan had no role. Those facts were written in official records. They were also copied into a red field book I kept in my coat. The book looked ordinary, with a cracked cover and rain-swollen pages. 41 years earlier, I had used it while working as a licensed land surveyor. I later helped establish the Blue Ridge Farmland Conservancy and mapped dozens of protected properties before returning to farming full-time. I did not discuss that history with Evan. He had seen my tractor, hearing aids, and hands bent by arthritis. He decided education could not live inside any of them. Miriam subscribed to a county title alert after a neighboring widow nearly lost an acre to a false boundary change. Alerts went to our landline, my email, and Blue Ridge Title, whose agent handled the trust transfer. Evan mocked this as something frightened old people bought. I renewed it every January and wrote the confirmation in my red book. Quiet safeguards rarely look important until the day they speak first. 3 days before Miriam died, I found the Cedar document box open in my office. The trust binder was out of order, and the medical certification section had been copied. Evan said he was checking insurance values. Leah stood behind him, holding a deposit brochure from Silver Pines Memory Care. For whom, I asked. Evan answered before she could. Planning is not betrayal, Caleb. At your age, responsible families prepare. I asked Leah whether she believed I needed memory care. Her eyes filled. She said nobody had decided anything. Evan folded the brochure and placed it in his pocket. Miriam died the following Tuesday with Leah and me beside her. Her last clear request was not about the farm. She made me promise I would not use the land to keep our daughter close. A gate can protect, she whispered. It can also become a cage. I wrote the sentence in the Redfield book because grief makes a thief of exact words. The evening before the funeral, Evan offered to handle guests, food, and transportation. I thanked him. He asked for my office key so he could retrieve the cemetery deed. I told him the funeral home already had it. His smile held 1 second too long. At dawn, I found fresh tire tracks beside the east pasture in a square patch of grass where somebody had marked the ground. In the red book, I wrote the time, weather, and tread pattern. Then I put on my black suit and went to bury my wife. More than 200 people filled Cedar Grove Church. Miriam had delivered meals, organized school auctions, and remembered the names of children who had grown old enough to bring their own grandchildren. Evan greeted each guest at the door as if he were hosting a campaign event. Leah stood beside the casket with one hand locked around Owen's. When I approached, Evan stepped between us to adjust my tie. He asked whether I had taken my morning medication. I didn't take morning medication. 2 neighbors heard the question and looked away politely. During the final hymn, my phone vibrated. The caller identified herself as Dana Whitaker from Blue Ridge Title. She had received an accelerated title order for Hawthorne Ridge and needed to confirm my contact information. The proposed seller was listed as Leah Mercer, successor trustee for an incapacitated Caleb Ward. I told Dana I was standing at my wife's funeral, fully capable, and had authorized no sale. She became quiet, then asked whether I could speak somewhere private. I stepped into the side vestibule. Dana explained that the title package included a listing agreement, a copy of my limited farm authorization, 1 physician's letter recommending cognitive evaluation, and an unsigned successor trustee affidavit. The buyer wanted to close in 12 days. Dana asked how I knew her preservation procedure. Old work, I said. When I returned, Evan was telling Leah I had wandered away during the service. I said the title company had called. His face changed only around the eyes. Scammers target grieving seniors, he said. Give me the phone. I put it in my pocket. At the cemetery, Evan guided me toward the wrong truck and asked whether I remembered where we had parked. Behind the church minutes earlier, I had heard him tell someone to list the farm before I returned. I wrote his exact words in the memorial program and let him keep believing I had not heard. The burial ended beneath cold rain. While guests drove back toward Hawthorne Ridge for the reception, Leah caught my sleeve. Dad, do not go home alone. Why? She looked toward Evan. He says you signed something after Mom's last hospital visit. I never saw you sign it, but he has a copy. He wants me to say you have been confused. I asked whether she believed that. No. Her answer came quickly. Then fear slowed the rest. But if I fight him publicly, he says he will take Owen and prove I am unstable too. Evan called her name. Leah released my sleeve and returned to him. At the farm, a for sale sign stood in the east pasture. The listing had gone live at 1014 that morning, 20 minutes after Miriam's service began. Photographs showed the barn farmhouse spring lot and Miriam's bedroom window. Several had been taken while her hospice nurse's car was visible in the yard. Evan told the gathering it was a preliminary estate plan. He said Miriam had wanted me free from the burden of acreage. I opened the Redfield book and asked which acreage he meant. All of it, he said. The online listing named only parcel 47A. That parcel has no independent access, I said. The Lane farmhouse and spring are 47B. Evan laughed for the guests. Caleb still thinks every old fence line is a legal boundary. The recorded plat thinks so too. His smile disappeared. He took Leah by the elbow and ordered her to bring coffee inside. She said she wanted to stay. His fingers tightened. I did not grab him. I asked Leah whether she wanted his hand there. No, she said. Evan released her because 20 people were watching. He blamed grief, exhaustion, and my habit of making innocent gestures suspicious. Then he announced that he and Leah would stay at the farmhouse to keep an eye on me. Their luggage was already in my upstairs hall. That was the first boundary he crossed in front of witnesses. The deeper one waited in my office. The Cedar document box was empty. My computer was on, and the scanner history showed 12 pages copied at 6:43 that morning. I photographed the screen and called Priya. She told me not to delete, print, or reorganize anything. Dana had already sent her the title package through a secure channel. Priya would notify the trustee bank and request a fraud hold. Evan entered the office without knocking. Leah says you are upset. Leah did not say that. He shut the door. You can make this dignified. Sign the affidavit, move somewhere safe, and let us turn dead land into money Owen can use. Miriam is buried 3 miles from here, Evan. Do not call what she loved dead. He leaned close enough for me to smell funeral coffee. By next month, a doctor will say whatever the records support. Do not make Leah choose between her husband and a confused old man. Then he opened the door and called for witnesses, saying I had threatened him. Leah appeared at the end of the hall. She looked at his face, then mine. For one long second, I saw the argument inside her. Dad did not threaten you, she said. Evan's expression hardened. The listing was no longer only an attack on my land. It was the structure he planned to use to make my daughter afraid of her own voice. Priya arrived before sunset with a portable scanner and instructions not to discuss the title file in front of Evan. He had moved into the guest room and installed a camera above my kitchen door, claiming it would protect me from falls. I unplugged it while Leah watched. He will say that proves you are reckless, she whispered. What do you say? She looked at the dark lens. I say he did not ask permission. That answer was small, but it belonged entirely to her. Dana's title package contained no single dramatic forgery. It was more careful than that. Evan had combined genuine records until they told a false story. My limited authorization showed that I once trusted him with farm bills. A hospital discharge note said I was temporarily disoriented after dehydration. One physician's letter recommended a routine cognitive evaluation. None declared me incapacitated. Together, Evan presented them as proof that Leah had become successor trustee. The unsigned affidavit required Leah to swear that 2 independent physicians had certified my incapacity. Evan had scheduled the public closing before obtaining either certification. He expected pressure, shame, and a room full of buyers to produce her signature. The sales contract revealed another layer. Halverson Development would pay below market value for 47A, then receive an option on 47B after I entered long-term care. A side agreement promised Evan a consulting fee if the rezoning succeeded. His name did not appear as seller, but he stood to receive money outside the trust. Priya asked whether I wanted Evan removed from the house immediately. The farm was mine to control, and he had entered without permission. I wanted to say yes. Then I saw Leah in the hallway with Owen. Removing Evan without a safety plan could send them both into his car and beyond my reach. Tonight they stay, I said. Tomorrow, Leah chooses again. We secured the office and changed its lock. The original trust binder was not in the Cedar box, but Priya held a certified copy. Dana placed a formal stop on the title order. The trustee bank froze new access requests and preserved 3 failed login attempts from an address assigned to Evan's office. My red field book supplied leads, not legal conclusions. Page 61 listed the recording number for the 47B access easement. Page 74 showed a right of first refusal granted to the Blue Ridge Farmland Conservancy. Page 90 contained the date Miriam and I placed both parcels into trust. Dana verified each reference against county records. The book also showed why Evan had mistaken me for easy prey. My handwriting had worsened with arthritis. Some pages held rain stains, feed calculations, or reminders to buy salt. Beside them were survey bearings accurate to the second. He saw an old farmer's clutter because that was all he expected to find. Later at 9, Dr. Helen Sloan called. Her name appeared on the cognitive evaluation letter. She had examined me once after dehydration and had recommended a routine follow-up. Evan later asked her office to revise the letter to say I lacked capacity. She refused. Her office kept the email. Silver Pines Memory Care confirmed that Evan had reserved a room in my name and paid the deposit from his and Leah's joint account. He scheduled admission for the morning after the proposed closing. Leah had not toured the facility. When Priya told her Leah sat at my kitchen table without speaking, Evan had said the deposit paid for a business retreat, their mortgage was 2 months behind, and he had transferred most of their savings into an account she could not view. Why did you not tell me? I asked. Because Mom was dying. Because every time I tried, he said you would think I was stupid for marrying him. That shame in her voice belonged to Evan, but he had trained her to carry it. Owen came downstairs holding a tablet. His father had asked him to photograph every room for Grandma's memory album. The listing photographs had been uploaded from Owen's cloud account. The boy thought he had helped preserve the farm, not advertise it. I told him the truth without making him responsible. The pictures were used without his understanding, and adults were fixing it. He began to cry. Leah held him while I called Priya back into the room. The tablet metadata showed when each photograph was taken. One image reflected Evan in Miriam's bedroom mirror, arranging documents on her dresser while she slept. Another showed the Cedar box open. The pictures did not prove what he removed, but they placed him with the records before the listing. Evan returned from town and found the kitchen camera unplugged. He demanded Leah reconnect it. She refused. He asked whether I had poisoned her against him. "You used Owen's pictures to list the farm," she said. He called it a misunderstanding and reached for her tablet. Owen stepped behind me. Evan stopped because Priya was watching from the office doorway. Then his phone rang. He answered on speaker by mistake. A man said, "The old man's room is confirmed. Once Leah signs, we move him Sunday." Evan ended the call and claimed it was about another client. Leah looked at me. "Dad, I need time to think." Every instinct told me to demand an answer while the evidence was warm. Instead, I gave her the keys to Miriam's car and the number for a family violence advocate Priya trusted. "Take all the time you can safely take," I said, "but decide somewhere he cannot listen." Leah drove to the library with Owen and called the advocate from a study room. Her name was Mara Velez. She did not tell Leah to leave, return, forgive, report, or confront. She helped her list what Evan controlled: money, passwords, transportation, Owen's school records, and the story other people heard about her. When Leah was 23, she announced that she and Evan were marrying after 7 months together. I saw his temper and told her the wedding was a mistake. When she defended him, I said that if she walked away from the family, the farm would not rescue her from the consequences. I meant that I would not finance Evan's schemes. Leah heard that she could return only after admitting I had been right. Evan repeated my sentence for 15 years whenever she considered asking for help. At 4, she returned without Owen. Mara had arranged for him to stay with a friend's family. Leah placed her car keys on the table and asked whether I remembered what I had said before her wedding. I apologized without attaching a lecture. Leah cried quietly, then asked for the keys back. She was not ready to leave Evan that afternoon. She wanted to collect school documents, medication, and clothes without triggering him. Mara helped create a safety plan. Priya arranged for a deputy to remain nearby without entering unless called. Leah chose a phrase to text if Evan blocked her. I was assigned one task: wait at the public road with Owen's bag. I did not improvise. Inside the farmhouse, Evan alternated between affection and accusation. Through an open window, I heard him promise that the farm sale would solve their mortgage, his business debt, and my decline. He said Leah had misunderstood the memory care reservation. When she asked to see their accounts, he told her financial details would worsen her anxiety. Leah returned to the road after 20 minutes, carrying one suitcase and Owen's school folder. Evan followed but stopped at the property line when he saw the deputy's cruiser. Leah did not announce the end of her marriage. She said she and Owen would stay elsewhere while she reviewed the title documents with independent counsel. "Your father put this in your head," he shouted. Leah answered, "My father did not open a secret account. You did." Evan moved to a hotel and sent messages through Owen's gaming account, the school portal, and Leah's coworkers. Each message called her confused, kidnapped, or manipulated. Mara helped preserve them without asking Leah to read every one. Priya filed for temporary exclusive use of the farmhouse and an order preventing Evan from accessing trust records. The title file continued growing. Dana confirmed the buyer's accelerated order had originated from Evan's work email. The consulting agreement promised him $180,000 after rezoning. The trustee bank verified he had attempted to reset my credentials using answers found in the copied binder. Still, the sale had not closed. Evan argued that all documents were drafts and that he had merely prepared options for a failing elder. His attorney said the memory care deposit proved concern, not exploitation. The line between ugly planning and attempted fraud would depend on what Evan did next and what records showed he intended. I wanted to call the Conservancy, the county clerk, every surveyor I had trained, and the sheriff I had known since his first property dispute. Priya stopped me. "Your reputation can preserve records," she said. "It cannot become evidence." So I used public channels. I authorized Dana to communicate with the trustee bank. I provided the Redfield book for comparison with recorded plats, not as a substitute for them. I gave a county investigator the scanner photographs and let him determine whether they mattered. Leah made her own choice. She would attend the closing. Evan continued advertising. If she stayed away, he planned to present her absence as proof she supported his affidavit but was too distressed to appear. She wanted to refuse in the room where he expected her obedience. You do not have to perform courage for an audience, I said. I am not going for them, she replied. I am going because he has used my silence as a signature for years. We agreed on boundaries. She would enter with Mara and her attorney, not with me. She could leave at any time. Owen would remain with friends. I would not challenge Evan alone or turn the closing into a speech about my land. That night I sat on the farmhouse porch with Miriam's empty chair beside me. The farm could be saved by records. Leah could not be saved like acreage. She needed room to choose even if her choice frightened me. In the red field book beneath Miriam's final words I wrote a second sentence. Leave the gate open from both sides. Evan scheduled an inspection 4 days before closing. He lacked permission to enter the farmhouse, but the listing agent still held an exterior access agreement that hadn't yet been formally withdrawn. Priya advised me to allow the scheduled inspection under observation, while Dana documented the title dispute. The buyer's representative, Troy Sutter, arrived with an engineer and 2 investors. Evan introduced me as the current occupant and asked whether somebody could keep me away from equipment. I wore work clothes, carried the red field book, and let him explain land I knew by every wet hollow. At the east pasture, Troy asked how trucks would enter parcel 47A. Evan pointed toward my lane. I opened the recorded plat and explained that the lane belonged to 47B and no access right had been granted to the development parcel. Troy asked why the listing omitted that fact. The investors began asking about delays. Evan pulled Troy aside near the equipment shed. They stood within sight, but beyond what Evan thought was my hearing range. My hearing aids were new. He had mistaken their existence for deafness. The access merges after Leah signs, Evan said. Caleb will be in Silver Pines by Sunday. Once he is admitted, nobody will care which old parcel owns a gravel lane. Evan lowered his voice. The page buyers see does not need every limitation. Leah certifies incapacity, we record successor authority, and the trust becomes cooperative. Her father will not challenge his only child. Evan noticed her and changed subjects. He offered to move the public closing from the title office to the Grange Hall so neighbors could celebrate a new housing project. Troy agreed only if the title defects were resolved. Dana said none was resolved. That evening, Troy's company sent Evan an email suspending the purchase. Evan answered from his work account that the elder obstacle and spousal hesitation would both be cured at closing. He copied the listing agent and his private lender. Dana received the chain because the title company was included. The phrase spousal hesitation revealed the structure more clearly than any angry threat. Evan treated Leah's consent as a temporary defect like a missing stamp. His financial pressure also surfaced. A creditor filed suit over a failed insurance venture, and bank records produced through lawful process showed the consulting fee had been pledged as collateral. The farm sale was not a distant opportunity. It was the money he had already promised to people he owed. Silver Pines provided its reservation file after receiving legal process. Evan had represented himself as my agent and claimed I wandered at night. He selected a locked memory unit even though no physician recommended one. Admission forms directed staff not to release me to Leah without Evan's approval. When Leah read that clause with her attorney, she stopped defending his intentions. He was not trying to care for Dad, she said. He was trying to control who could bring him home. She then disclosed a message she had been afraid to show. Evan had left it on her work voicemail after she moved out. Sign at the hall, he said, or I send the school every unstable message you have ever written and seek sole custody of Owen. Once your father is placed, you will have nobody left to perform for. The voicemail wasn't secret surveillance. Evan had created and sent it himself. Leah authorized her attorney to provide the original file to the investigator. By then, the evidence came from independent directions, title records, bank access logs, the buyer's email chain, the physician's refusal, the facility file, Owen's photo metadata, witnesses at the funeral, and Evan's voicemail. My field book pointed to official records, but it did not carry the case alone. The county investigator, Rachel Kim, told us the Commonwealth's attorney was reviewing attempted financial exploitation computer offenses and document-related charges. She promised no arrest date and no courtroom result. Her job was to establish facts, not deliver the ending our grief wanted. Evan refused to cancel the Grange Hall event. He renamed it the Hawthorne Ridge Community Housing Announcement and invited local reporters. His lawyer withdrew. The listing agent removed her name, but Evan circulated a new flyer, claiming Leah would sign as successor trustee at noon. He needed the public room because private consent had failed. He believed an audience would make Leah protect appearances. Dana agreed to attend, only to state the title company's position. The trustee bank sent counsel. Jacob Ellis, director of the Blue Ridge Farmland Conservancy, came because the recorded right of first refusal required formal notice of any valid offer. Priya carried certified trust records. Rachel Kim planned to observe until evidence or safety required action. I asked Leah one final time whether she wanted the event stopped before it began. No, she said. I want my refusal recorded where he planned to use my name. On the morning of the closing, I put the red field book in my coat. Miriam's memorial program remained between pages 89 and 90, where I had written Evan's funeral day words. At the Grange Hall, a reserved chair on stage carried a card that read, Caleb Ward Family Elder. Leah's card read, Successor Trustee. Evan had placed a black pen across it. The Grange Hall smelled of floor wax coffee and wet coats. 80 neighbors sat beside investors, reporters, and families Evan had invited with promises of affordable homes. A projection behind the stage showed an aerial photograph of Hawthorne Ridge divided into bright building lots. Evan began at noon without waiting for Dana. He spoke about honoring Miriam's legacy by transforming unused land into opportunity. He described my move to Silver Pines as a compassionate family decision and said Leah had accepted her duty as successor trustee. Leah entered from the side aisle with Mara and attorney Simone Beck. She wore no wedding ring. Evan paused, then smiled for the cameras and held out his hand. Leah took a chair in the front row instead. Dana walked to the microphone carrying a gray file. Blue Ridge Title cannot insure or close the proposed transaction. Caleb Ward has not authorized a sale. Leah Mercer has not qualified as successor trustee. Parcel 47A lacks the access represented in the listing, and the trust remains under fraud hold. Evan said the title company was protecting an obsolete technicality. He held up my limited authorization and claimed I had given him control months earlier. Priya displayed the certified document. She read the expiration date, the restriction to one operating account, and the sentence excluding real estate and trust assets. Evan's copy ended before that sentence because the final page had not been included in his package. Dana explained that the complete authorization had been recorded with the trustee bank before Miriam entered hospice. Its checksum and receipt predated the dispute. The facts did not depend on whose copy looked cleaner. Evan turned to Leah. This ends when you sign the successor affidavit. An assistant placed the black pen before her. The affidavit stated that 2 independent physicians had certified my incapacity. Only one medical letter existed, and it recommended evaluation rather than declaring incapacity. Leah pushed the paper away. I will not help my husband declare my father incompetent, she said. I will not swear that 2 doctors signed when neither did. I did not authorize this sale, and my absence was never consent. Simone stated that threats involving custody had been preserved from Evan's voicemail. She did not read Leah's private messages or diagnose anyone. She identified the source date and chain of custody. Leah confirmed that the voice was her husband's and that she had provided the file voluntarily. Troy Sutter stood near the rear wall. He said his company had suspended the purchase after Evan described my placement as a way to cure access and authority problems. Dana confirmed she heard Evan say the second medical certification would come after admission. The Silver Pines administrator then stated that its file named Evan as my agent selected a locked unit and restricted Leah's access. The facility had canceled the reservation when it learned I had never consented. Evan called each statement a misunderstanding. Separately, each one could be explained away. Together they formed a chain, copied records, false authority, a discounted contract, a personal fee, planned confinement pressure on Leah, and a public signature he expected fear to supply. He pointed toward me. Look at him. He carries a little red notebook because he cannot remember his own farm. He cannot follow a digital title file. He has spent his life moving fence posts and pretending they are law. I walked to Dana's table and opened the book to page 61. This is where I wrote the recording reference. The county record, not my handwriting controls. Jacob Ellis from the Conservancy rose. He had known me for 35 years. Caleb Ward was a licensed surveyor before most people in this room owned property. He prepared the official plat for Hawthorne Ridge and helped create the Blue Ridge Farmland Conservancy. The access easement and right of first refusal bear his survey seal. Several farmers recognized my name then. Evan did not. He stared at the muddy boots he had offered as proof of ignorance. I said, "My history explains why I checked the numbers. It does not prove what you intended. Your records and your words must do that." Dana laid out the sequence. The listing went live during Miriam's funeral. Evan's work account requested the accelerated title order. 3 failed trust login attempts came from his office. His side agreement promised a consulting fee. His email called my legal authority an elder obstacle. The complete authorization excluded the transaction. Dr. Sloan appeared by secure video. She confirmed that she never certified incapacity and had refused a request to alter her letter. She answered only questions about her document. My ability was not established by applause. The false claim was defeated by its missing requirements. Evan moved toward the gray title file. Dana closed it and stepped back. Rachel Kim identified herself as a county investigator and told him not to touch the records. He demanded that she remove me for exploiting a vulnerable daughter. Rachel looked at Leah. "Do you want to leave?" Leah stood. "Yes, I want to leave this marriage. I have filed for temporary custody orders and exclusive use of our home. All contact goes through counsel." The room heard the decision, but it belonged to Leah before the room heard it. Evan seized her wrist. The movement was quick and ordinary, which made it more revealing than a dramatic blow. Leah said, "Let go." He tightened his grip and told her not to humiliate him. Mara moved toward Leah. Rachel ordered Evan to release her. When he did not, a uniformed deputy separated them and documented the red marks. Rachel then served a warrant related to alleged attempted financial exploitation and computer access. She explained that he was being arrested on a judge's order, not for losing an argument at the hall. Evan shouted that Leah had signed the marriage agreement, giving him control of family assets. Simone answered that marriage did not transfer my trust or erase Leah's right to refuse. Dana sealed the disputed documents for investigators. The bank's counsel confirmed no funds or title had moved. Then Evan saw the memorial program inside my red book. "You wrote down a private conversation at my mother-in-law's funeral. I wrote words I heard while standing 10 feet away." Troy said he had heard the same plan later at the inspection. The case did not rest on grief memory or my notes alone. Evan searched the hall for the version of himself that had entered it: responsible, husband, helpful son-in-law, developer of dead land. His investors avoided his eyes. The families invited for housing looked angry that their hopes had been used as stage decoration. A reporter asked whether I would now disinherit Leah. The question revealed how easily land could replace the person at the center of the story. "My daughter is not a parcel," I said. "Her decision today is not a price she pays for my approval." I did not announce the farm's value or threaten everyone who doubted me. I asked Dana for written confirmation that the title order was closed. I asked Jacob to preserve the conservancy notice. Then I closed the red book. Leah walked toward the side exit with Mara. At the door, she turned back not toward Evan, but toward me. "Dad, are you coming?" I left the reserved family elder chair empty and followed her out. The sign came down before sunset, but nothing ended quickly. Fraud holds court orders, school meetings, and grief moved on separate calendars. Evan faced charges related to attempted financial exploitation, unauthorized computer access, and false documents. The wrist incident became part of a separate protective order record. 11 months later, he entered a plea to several counts. The sentence included jail time, supervised probation, restitution, and an order barring access to my trust in Leah's accounts. He was punished for provable conduct, not for being a man the county disliked. Leah obtained temporary custody arrangements, then a divorce. She didn't receive a magical new life in one hearing. Evan challenged expenses, schedules, and school decisions. Communication stayed inside a parenting application reviewed by counsel. Owen began therapy and slowly stopped asking whether taking the photographs had caused everything. Leah returned to teaching after a short leave. She opened her own bank account, replaced her passwords, and learned the exact balance of every debt carrying her name. Some evenings she sounded strong. On others, a message notification made her hands shake. Freedom arrived as practice, not a single doorway. Our relationship also required repair. She reminded me that my old ultimatum had helped Evan isolate her. I did not answer with the farm I had preserved or the evidence I had gathered. Saving property did not cancel the years when pride made me difficult to approach. We met with a family counselor twice a month. I learned to ask whether Leah wanted listening advice or practical help. She learned that disagreement did not mean the gate was closing. Trust returned in small, testable pieces. I amended the Hawthorne Ridge Trust with Priya's help. The farm remained protected, but Leah was not forced to become its keeper. A professional trustee would manage it if I lost capacity. 2 independent physicians were still required, and no successor could sell the homestead during a disputed certification. Owen received no direct control before adulthood. I also created a long-term lease for a young farming couple who had worked nearby land for years. Their rent supported taxes and repairs. The arrangement kept fields productive without turning my daughter into unpaid labor or the farm into a monument nobody could touch. The Conservancy strengthened its right of first refusal and updated the access records. Dana checked every filing. The Redfield book remained useful as history, but certified records lived in 3 secure places. Quiet protection no longer depended on one aging man's coat pocket. Miriam's death was harder after the emergency ended. During the title fight, anger gave my mornings a schedule. When the calls stopped, her empty chair became a fact again. Leah and Owen came for Sunday dinner when they wanted to, not because I used loneliness as a summons. One spring afternoon, Owen asked whether he could learn surveying. I showed him how to hold a range pole and why a line on a map had to meet something verifiable on the ground. Then I told him the rule that mattered more. A boundary should make responsibility clear, I said. It should not make another person small. He wrote it in a new blue notebook. I kept the red one. Leah never returned to Evan. She did not offer forgiveness to make relatives comfortable. When he completed required counseling, she allowed communication about Owen under the court's rules. Any wider relationship would depend on years of accountable behavior, not letters, tears, or pressure from family. On the first anniversary of Miriam's funeral, Leah and I walked to the east pasture. The square patch where the for sale sign had stood was green again. I showed her the line between 47A and 47B, though no fence marked it. Mom was right about gates, she said. She usually was. Leah asked whether I wished I had thrown Evan off the farm the first day. I told her part of me always would. The wiser answer was that protecting land had been simple compared with respecting her pace. If I had turned rescue into another command, Evan's control would have been replaced, not defeated. She took the Redfield book from my hand and opened it to Miriam's final sentence. Beneath it was mine. Leave the gate open from both sides. Leah added a third line in her own handwriting. A signature means nothing unless the person is free to refuse. We placed the book back in the Cedar document box, not as the deed and not as a weapon. It was a record of what our family had almost confused ownership with: love, silence with consent, and protection with control. At dusk, I shut the east gate. Leah stood on the road with her own keys, free to leave and free to return. Hawthorne Ridge was still mine to care for, but my daughter was never mine to manage. If your family used love to pressure you into signing, staying, or surrendering a boundary, what proof of change would you require before trust returned? Share your answer in the comments. And subscribe for more stories about quiet people who protect the truth without taking away another person's right to choose.